Hey there, my name is Pravus and welcome to more Hearts of Iron 4. We've got a new DLC today and it's called Arms Against Tyranny, and Paradox is sponsoring me to show it off today. If you haven't seen it before, this is going to introduce a huge number of changes to the Nordic regions of the world. By which, of course, I'm talking about Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and I believe even Iceland got a new focus tree, which is pretty exciting. There are a number of new features that are introduced for everybody as well, including some changes for research and production of various different weapons, artillery, trucks, etc., but we'll get into that in a little bit. What I'm going to do today is show off a potential strategy for Denmark to re-establish a Viking super empire in the North Sea. Denmark, of course, not exactly in the best strategic spot. They do get invaded by the German Reich very early in World War I and usually capitulate within, well, let's say 2 hours or so. And with that in mind, there's a lot of fun options with Denmark. I mean, if you want to just outright surrender to the Germans, become their willing vassal, and betray them later, that's a thing you can do. Or, of course, you can do what most people will probably do, which is get a king back on the throne and try to establish the Kalmar Union. But what I'm going for specifically is this one little focus right down here, Danelagen. Danelagen? I don't know how you're supposed to say that. Danish is a silly language, okay? There was a time when our dominion stretched across the North Sea and the English obeyed our laws. Yes, in the era of Vikings. That's effectively what this is supposed to be. Re-establish the Viking Empire. However, alas, the only way to get this particular focus is to go down the fascist route, not the monarchist route. So even though I think that the monarchist route is probably a little bit faster and more powerful than the fascist route, we're going to go ahead and take this one over here and try to establish a powerhouse as quickly as possible without getting drawn into a war against the Allies too early on and without losing to the Germans. So of course the first thing we are going to do is reaffirm our neutrality, which sounds like the exact opposite of what I want to do, but it's our only option. Then, of course, go for the standard stuff. We want the basic machine tools, we want the construction, we want the electromechanical interface, blah, blah, blah. And I'm also going to immediately start building out military factories. Normally, I like to focus on some civilian, but in this particular case, we have to go for some very early aggression. And that means I desperately need equipment. That is going to be my biggest bottleneck. We'll also go ahead and build up some convoys. I don't really see any point in building any warships this early on because, I hate to say it, but we're not going to complete any of those anytime quickly with only 4 dockyards. Trade for a little bit of steel, and I'll go ahead and start taking these convoys away once I have more factories. As you can see, we start off in a pretty awful economic situation. 2 military factories and only 4 available civilian factories at the beginning of the game. 5 units, and all with a terrible deficit of equipment. Yeah, this is gonna be rough. Still, if I did my homework correctly, and I did spend hours trying to perfect this build order and the timing here, we should be able to conquer both Sweden and Norway before World War II begins and even before the UK starts handing out guarantees. If we can do that, piddly little Denmark over here will be able to reform the Kalmar Union, which is going to automatically core all of Sweden and all of Norway. All of a sudden, we become a viable nation. The faster we can do this, the better. So after reaffirming our neutrality, we are going to unify the right, which is going to start building up the non-aligned power at the expense of democracy. Now, of course, I need fascism, so we're going to go ahead and immediately hire a political advisor. I need Fritz Clausen, who gets me some daily fascism support. As far as our national spirits, this actually hurts us pretty badly as well. The declaration of neutrality is going to make it difficult for us to actually join any wars or declare any of our own. We have a neglected military, which makes it very pathetic for us. We surrender quickly like the French. We're also getting an economic crisis, which is reducing stability and democracy support, which kind of works for me temporarily. And also we have horrible industry. Yeah, a lot to fix as Denmark. Anyway, with the right unified, we are now going to gain the support of the conservatives, and then we are going to conspire with the officer corps and strengthen the officer corps, and then finally encourage paramilitary organizations. What this is going to do is really hurt democracy quite a lot, start building up that non-aligned and fascist support so that I can then overthrow the government. This also comes with the added advantage of giving me some extra war support, so I will be able to go for that partial mobilization a little bit earlier. Let's also hire Wilhelm Buhl over here when I can. This reduces my consumer goods, gets me some stability, and makes those economy laws a little bit cheaper, which is going to be good since I am going for the partial mobilization, which we should be able to do the second we finish with strengthening the officer corps. Let's go ahead and pick that sucker up and move on. Now, Denmark also has one of those balance mechanics that we saw similar to Italy in By Blood Alone, which is going to be a balance between welfare spending and warfare spending. Obviously, I'm shooting for the warfare side of things, which is going to boost up things like my mobilization speed, my production efficiency cap and growth, conscription laws, and eventually also military factory construction speed. That said, we actually should not need to spend any of our political power trying to boost up the warfare side of things. A lot of that is going to happen passively just as we take these focuses. Let's go ahead and overthrow that government. That's going to get me a huge penalty to my stability, but such is the way of things. And boom, the non-aligned should now be taking over, which is not exactly what I'm shooting for, but at least it's one step closer. Now, if you want to go down the fascist route over here, we can march on the capital. If I want to continue, though, I'm going to need a couple of different thresholds. We can either ask the Germans for support, and we will join the Axis, at which point I only need 30% fascism, and that's going to happen pretty quickly. However, I don't really want to join the Axis, not immediately, because I don't want to share any of the war score with Sweden and Norway, though this would be an easy way to win those wars. So instead, I'm going to seize power myself and then say Denmark comes first, at which point I need 40% of my fascism support. That's going to take a bit longer. So believe it or not, we're actually not going to go down this route yet. Not for a little bit. We have some time to kill. Instead, I'm going to start by fortifying my borders, and the reason I'm doing that is because it's then going to lead into a couple of focuses that get me some extra military factories. We're in a weird balancing act where even if I can get down the fascist route and try to justify on Sweden, I'm not going to have a large enough army to take them on, not immediately. So we really do need to get those factories early. It's an unfortunate balancing act we need to take. Also, if I want to get to 40% fascism quickly, we're going to have to do some anti-democratic raids now that we are non-aligned. Now, this is intended really to start boosting up the non-aligned power, but really all we care about is reducing democracy, and overall we go a little bit faster with fascism, and that's really what I'm shooting for. Oh, and for good measure, let's go ahead and go to the Chief of Army and actually hire Eric With a little bit early as well. Wouldn't mind getting that defense for when we have to fight against the Germans, and also maybe just a bit of extra army experience. So let's go ahead and refortify Tunistillingen? I have no idea how you say that, but 2 extra military factories is going to make a pretty big difference, so we'll pick that one up. And now that we have a little bit of manpower coming in thanks to our new ruler, I'm going to go ahead and start training up some infantry. I'm going to go for 6 regular infantry over here, which are simple 16 combat with infantry. Though notice this last line battalion down here is locked until we get further down doctrines. I think that's new. And let's go ahead and also train up what I'm going to call a simple Coast Guard division. 10 combat with, not outstanding, but I need about, let's say, 8 of those. Now, we're not going to have enough equipment or manpower to train those up for a while, so this is going to be a slow process. But the reason I need to start training up some troops is looking forward. Once I want to start rallying the nation, we need 100,000 manpower in the field. So we might as well go ahead and start this process, even though I know it's going to be a long time. Now, while we're waiting for all this, something new you haven't seen before, if you want to do some research for, let's say, the artillery, notice we're going to have something new pop up over here. We have military organizations which are responsible for the manufacturing of a lot of our goods. You're going to get this for artillery, tanks, trucks, guns, planes, etc. And sometimes there's more than one option. As you conduct research under a certain organization or you start simply producing their goods, they're going to start leveling up. And once you get some new trait points, you can assign these to get some extra bonuses for your equipment, which is a pretty interesting change in this DLC. Now that we have those 2 extra military factories, let's actually bump over here to signing. I'm not even going to, this is just forget about it. I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce that. This gets me another factory and also starts fixing my neglected military. But the reason we want this is then I can move on eventually to expanding how you say this, Vernepleiten, whatever, which gets me some manpower, but also a free upgrade to my conscription law. I'm going to toss those extra factories over here, 1 to infantry equipment and 1 over here to artillery. Again, you can see we have to choose our manufacturer. And as soon as we are done signing this, I'm going to go ahead and also hire a guy named Christmas. I'm not even kidding. Gets me some extra recruitable population. That's good. War support could be helpful. And conscription law cost reduction. Now, as much as I want to expand the Vernepleiten over here, we're actually going to go ahead and march on the capital because we are about to hit that 35% threshold I'm looking for, plus the 5% here means our timing says we can go ahead and move on to seize power as soon as this is done. So now's the time to go ahead and refocus on our political branch. I'm now up to 5 factories on infantry equipment, 1 on artillery, and 1 on support equipment here, by the way. We're really going to be struggling for equipment in this game. There's simply no way around it at the beginning, and if you want to have a large enough army to actually stand a chance against Sweden and Norway on your own without the Axis help, you really got to focus on those factories. That's why I'm prioritizing those as aggressively as I am. Anyway, we should be ready to go ahead and seize power. And at this point, the fascists are now in control. Let's go ahead and say Denmark first, which is going to remove the declaration of neutrality. And I really want to get rid of that because that is increasing my justify war goal time by 25%. And now that we have the political power, let's also go ahead and move on to volunteer-only conscription law. Do not go to limited conscription, by the way. When you do eventually go down to expand Verneplighten over here, it is going to get us up to limited conscription, but if we already have it, this is going to have no effect. So if you want to save yourself about 100 political power, stop at volunteer-only, then take this, and then you can safely move on to the extensive conscription. And with that finished, go ahead and pause your game. We will go ahead and do the expansion here for the extra conscription. And here's something stupid, all right? It's really important you stop right here. Do not unpause the game. Simply save and reload. Why? Well, because after getting the Denmark first, neutrality is supposed to be gone. We're going to see this disappear in about a day. So it's gone now, right? That 25% malice should be gone. If I want to start justifying on Sweden, we can do that, but oh, look, it's going to take 300 days. Here's something real dumb, right? It is not going to recalculate this 300 days and that 25% penalty until the beginning of next month. That's in 20 days. But if you save and then reload first, now it's only going to take 240 days. We just shaved off 2 months of justification time, and that makes or breaks whether or not the British are going to be able to guarantee. I know. It's extremely stupid, and that drove me mad. But all right, we've begun our justification. We should be able to declare war as early as February of 1938. Now that we're about to get that conscription improvement, let's go ahead and jump back over here to the left. So we're going to devalue the krona, which is going to hurt our stability, but it is going to reduce the consumer goods by 10% and solve the whole stability issue. Also, now that we have limited conscription, this is the time you want to move on to the extensive conscription. And the next thing I want to do is trade with Germany. If they accept our offer, we're going to get a free civilian factory, also some consumer goods reduction, and on the line is going to start going down. Note, by the way, we did get a trait point over here for our artillery, so now we get to choose what kind of a bonus do we want. Some extra breakthrough, some defense, or we can make our anti-tank and anti-air better, or we can just make our towed artillery a little bit better. I'll take the soft attack and defense, but, you know, breakthrough and stuff, it all can be good. It really depends on what you want to do. And that's one of the cool things about this new system is you can customize your equipment to a far greater degree than you could before. All right, now that we are trading with Germany, we could trade with Britain as well. I think this is a little bit of a optional choice, but they should be willing to accept even though we are fascist as long as we also pair that up with some improved relations. Get them to about, like 70 opinion or so, and they seem to almost always accept. And those extra factories can be pretty nice. Now, the Germans did accept our proposal, so there we go. We get all these benefits. And they usually offer to expand the deal even further than that, which would get me another civilian factory. And mostly they get some different benefits. However, it kind of hurts them in some ways because they're about to increase their consumer goods by another 10%. So if we take a look over here from Danish produce, once this is calculated, we should see that they're going to have 20% consumer goods. That's kind of a weird play, but we can do that to the British too. Got myself a military theorist, and I've also started working on the Grand Battle Plan Doctrine, which is actually pretty good for all the planning bonuses in the organization. That's not bad. But I also love the idea of lots of extra entrenchment, which increases the odds I'm going to survive when the Germans inevitably do come knocking. I'm also going to go ahead and start increasing our combat width for our basic infantry up here to, let's say, 18. And I wouldn't mind duplicating this and creating our standard 21 width of infantry plus 1 artillery. Like so. The 21 width for our division is not actually ideal because most of Scandinavia is going to be like forests and stuff, which does have a combat width multiple of 20. So we're going to be a little bit over on that, but honestly, I think it's going to be worth it for the extra soft attack. And then as we start producing more artillery, I'll go ahead and start swapping some of these basic infantry out for the slightly better version. And now some of my Coast Guard units are starting to come together. I'm going to go ahead and tell these guys to defend only the naval bases, because I guarantee you that Sweden is going to launch a naval invasion on at least one of them. If you don't have any Coast Guard, then you're probably going to get swarmed. All right, that's the trade deal with Britain up and running. Again, I think that one is optional, but I think it's an okay choice. Let's go ahead and rally the nation now that I do have 100,000 manpower deployed. And I'm actually not going to have enough time to train the rest of these Coast Guard right away, so even though they're green, I'm going to go ahead and immediately deploy them so they can disperse themselves, because we should be ready to go ahead and attack Sweden in just a couple of weeks. Notice we're still not at the 25% world tension. Barely. The whole point of this strategy and the timing I've done now is to get the justification ready before the Anschluss occurs, which is what Germany should be working on right now. When they do that, the world tension will jump above 25%, at which point the UK will be inclined to guarantee Sweden, and I do not want to fight the Allies alone. And there's the justification. Also the inquiry to expand the deal. Thanks, UK. I'm about to make you very angry, but that's completely fine. Now, as far as your attack plan against Sweden, they're going to be dumb enough to keep a few troops up here against Norway and around Göteborg for a naval invasion. They're going to have most of their troops sitting right here on the strait, and in my experience, usually at least one person defending Malmö. What I'm going to do is have at least a few troops ready to go ahead and pin all of these guys on the strait while I do a naval invasion all around it. The goal of this is simply to surround and encircle the strait right here so we can crush their army, and as long as we get Malmö quickly, we'll have enough supply to make that work. And the good news is, even though I have a very tiny navy, we only need to protect this one tile for a very brief moment. So let's go ahead and declare our war. Boom, and launch the naval invasion. Everything comes down to this. If this fails, you may have to reload. So the troops should be trying to arrive over here right now. Again, we need to pin these guys down as much as we are able. These guys did arrive before attacking. The first thing I'm going to do is move over here and try to create that encirclement I was talking about. They're going to try to pin me down, which hopefully will not work for them. And that's the Anschluss right there. So we were down to the week before that world tension was going to jump above 25%. The Germans do like sending some divisions as volunteers. I really don't see any reason not to say, yeah, go for it. Come on, just need you to stop your attack for a brief moment so I can save these guys before they get killed. There we go. All right. So now comes the tricky part. Make sure you don't lose this encirclement while we then systematically start crushing all the troops left here in Helsingborg. And if we can do that, that's going to be the majority of their army dead. Oh, and yeah, there's a naval invasion they were shooting for. See, I was ready for that. Doesn't do anything. And there we go. We have encircled and crushed the entirety of the army that was around the strait. Now we go ahead and start trying to take as much as we can. Now, a fun thing that Sweden is going to try to do is they will quickly train up some troops and rapid deploy them before they have any real experience behind them. So you're going to find that these guys keep resurging with another like 11 divisions pretty quickly. You'll have to do a few more encirclements, so don't feel like you can overextend. But as long as you're careful, you have the advantage. You should be able to win this. Now that we've rallied the nation, we could actually go for a claim against Norway. And this is actually pretty helpful because you'll get an immediate war goal. You don't have to worry about any guarantees. You can just declare the war immediately if you want. Which is actually something you could do. You could skip the whole Sweden thing, try to go for Norway directly, and then take on Sweden, but only if you feel comfortable doing a sneak attack against the British first. I don't feel that confident, though I'm sure other folks probably could, like, I don't know, Bittersteel. That guy could totally do it. Not me, though. Instead, I'm going to storm Afteling over here, which gets me a fair bit of extra organization and attack for all divisions. Not bad. Still shooting for these tiny little encirclements. Every single one that I can get is great, because that means I don't have to worry about their manpower. The more you deplete their manpower pool, the less of those annoying reinforcements they'll put together. Once we grab Göteborg over here, by the way, we shouldn't have to worry anymore about the naval invasions, at which point we can go ahead and send these guys to the front line just as some extra reinforcements to take advantage of any holes in the Swedish line. That should encircle pretty much the rest of the Swedish army. I don't even think they have anything left up over here, and I'm betting they're about out of manpower at this point. It says they have none. So once these guys are cleaned up, that's it. We now have the ability to just walk through Sweden with impunity. And that is going to be a very fast war. There they go. Goodbye, Sweden. All right. Now, I'm going to take all of this for myself because you need all Swedish corps in order to form the Kalmar Union. This is why I didn't want to join the Axis and let them join, because then they'd have so much war score I'd get nothing. But before we go ahead and take their land, let's start by taking the entirety of their navy, and then we'll go ahead and take all of their lands. There we go. That's looking a lot better. Ooh, I can actually invite Hungary into my faction. Yeah, we're not going to do that. I actually plan on playing some faction shenanigans in a bit. Instead, let's just go ahead and set ourselves up for our war against Norway, which should be ready to go in very soon, actually. June 16th is when we won the war. That was really quick. By the way, let's go ahead and move on to war economy. Should have done that a tiny bit ago. Don't see any reason not to. Okay, we're ready to fight Norway. Let's go ahead and prioritize the Hæren again instead of the Navy, which gets me some nice organization bonuses, plus a bit of attack and a cheaper doctrine. And of course, immediately declare this war, and we still don't have to worry about the Allies guaranteeing because we got the instant annexation goal. I'm gonna go ahead and move some troops over here toward Trondheim to try to immediately split off the forces that are all the way up over here versus the ones down here closer to the capital. Take that down and we'll be fine. Now we should get a pop-up, there we go, a useful collaborator who is the proponents of fascism in Norway and has offered to help basically create a puppet government. It'd be kind of like a civil war in Norway, and then afterwards we should be able to ask that they become my puppet, and they should accept, at which point we'll then be able to annex them later on. However, I want to annex these guys all immediately. I don't think we need their help, so we're going to go ahead and say we'll take care of this ourselves. We surrounded some of their troops around Oslo and such. Those guys are going down pretty darn quick. Now we just go ahead and start taking the rest of the victory points down over here. And honestly, I don't think we have to worry about this area too much. In fact, it looks like the Germans are taking care of it for me. Actually, that was even faster than I thought. All right, perfect. Let's do the exact same thing. We're going to take their navy, and then we are going to take their land. Confirm and exit, and that means that all of Scandinavia proper is now going to be mine. Which means by September of 1938, we can go down over here and restore the Kalmar Union, gaining cores on all of this territory. Thank you, Scandinavian Empire. That was actually even faster than the last time I did all this stuff. All right. Well, the next thing I'm going to do is dismantle the faction, which I know sounds really weird, but I'm turning my attention toward Finland as my next big target, because after you go for the Kalmar Union, the next thing to do is to proclaim Nordic unity and become the Nordic Empire. For that, I need to control Iceland and I need to control Finland. Iceland, in theory, we can deal with easily because there's a reintegrate the island option here, and they'll have an option to simply be annexed by us. If they accept, perfect. If not, I'll have a war goal. I'll take them down really quick. So really what I need to do is find a way to take down Finland. So now the real trick is, when do I want to start justifying a war goal against these guys? Now, this time around, I think I can say with a lot of confidence that the British are going to defend them. The question then becomes, do I think I could take on the British? And the answer is a solid maybe, if I can get a few more troops and then do a backdoor auction over here in Scotland. Though what might be even easier, honestly, is to wait until the Germans start World War II when I join my own war. They invite me into the Axis, they leave me the heck alone, and I take on the UK while they deal with the rest of the Allies, making the war a lot easier so I can focus my attention on two fronts while they take on the mainland. That's all getting ahead of myself, though. Now that we have all of Scandinavia under our control, we should see our manpower is about to skyrocket, and we're going to have a fair bit more factories to work with. Not quite as many as I would like still, but better. And fortunately, we have a lot more military factories to work with. Thank God. This is why I had to rush this. Denmark on its own is just way too weak. I mean, it's a challenge to play as a minor nation in the best of times, but no. Denmark would have been very doomed unless you want to do some weird surrender shenanigans. But since we formed the Scandinavian Empire before World War II began, before even 1939 hits, I've got a little bit of time to start building up my forces. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Start training up some additional troops. Now that we prioritize Hæren, we should be able to go for resurgent military power. Alternatively, I could go ahead and go for pan-Scandinavianism. But I'm actually going to go ahead and grab first the experimental technology for the research slot, because the sooner you get that, the better. Then we're going to go ahead and reintegrate the island. Then we're going to go for pan-Scandinavianism so I can rally all of my people and get some bonuses. Then we're going to go for research and military power and Danelagen over here, which is going to allow us to have that annex war goal against the United Kingdom. All right, I'm going to try this, and I hope my timing is correct. Let's go ahead and start justifying the war goal against Finland. Says that's going to be finishing around June 29th of 1939. That is pretty much the earliest that I could expect World War II to kick off, and if I'm off by a month or two, not a big deal. And the funny thing is, I don't even think that I need to own all of Finland. I just need to control it. So even if I do go into this war alone, God forbid, and I have to worry about the UK, as long as I can occupy all of Finland and get them to capitulate ideally before the Soviets trigger the Winter War, I can just form the Nordic Empire, boom, done, easy. Oh, and lovely. Iceland did accept my annexation, so I don't have to go and kill them now. You can core them, by the way, just by going for Develop Island over here, but considering I'm gonna get a core anyway with the Nordic Unity thing, I don't think I really care. I mean, it is just Iceland after all. Though I know there are already videos out there of people starting as Iceland and somehow creating a new Viking empire that conquers, like, this entire region. That's a little nuts to me. The one thing that still kind of sucks about this build and starting as Denmark is I still have nowhere near enough military factories to be a threat to, let's say, the German Reich. I mean, it'll get better, right? The more cores I can take on, obviously, the better that's going to be. Heck, if I could actually find my way to get down to Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, we'd have another option for expansion, which is the Dominia Meris Baltici, which, own all of this so we can form the Danish Empire. That's certainly a thing, but I don't think we're going to be able to get to that before the Soviets do. If we had retained our faction, I could try to invite all of these folks into the Northern National Front, and they would be allies. But allies aren't good enough. I need subjects, and quite frankly, I don't think it's worth getting dragged into an early war against the Soviets, when I'd much rather take down the UK. Yeah, there's the guarantee from the British. Knew that was coming. I do think I'm going to get rid of Fritz at this point. Maybe we could pick up the factory output or the research speed. I think either could be good, but considering equipment is my big issue, let's go for factory output. All right, this is done. Excellent. So we can now declare war on the UK at any time, which is one way to go to war against the Allies, obviously. Could institute corporatism. I don't know that I love this. I mean, yeah, it would get me an absolute ton of manpower. Big issue I've got is the consumer goods factory go up by 30%, which is truly atrocious, but at least you get generally better factories across the board, so I don't know. It's an option. I don't see it as super high priority, though. I might prefer to go ahead and start working on things like a free spy agency. A little bit of spying never hurt no one. All right, let's go ahead and declare. Now, I would love to go for an immediate attack against the UK, but I have good reason to believe they're going to have enough ships in this area to stop me, so I'd rather go ahead and make the progress on Finland, try to blitz them down quick so we can core all their land. And then really what we have to do is just hope that there's going to come a point where the UK is kind of dumb and just lets their guard down, because that does happen. So off we go, 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 go. War interrupts British trade. Yes, we knew that was going to happen, and yes, Finland joined the Allies, which means I'm now at war against Britain. And Germans, anytime you want to go ahead and poke Poland, I say go for it. Honestly, I don't anticipate Finland being too difficult to deal with, mainly because they've got all their troops currently up against the Soviets. They correctly ascertain that the Soviets are the true threat, but it's not going to save them now. Rest of the reinforcements are on the way. So far, we haven't encountered any resistance. There goes Helsinki. I don't know how much we have to beat down Finland for them to fall, but they're already 52% of the way towards capitulation. If you want to do a base race, that's fine. I'll get you to capitulate first. Then I can just eat you. And Finland is gone. Okay, that leaves behind a surprising number of French troops I gotta go deal with. Right, and I need to go ahead and invade this, but once we get that, we're now that much closer to proclaiming Nordic unity. And the Germans just declared war on Poland. Good. So you're at war with the UK now? Yes. May I join your faction now? Yes. Problem solved, and they're not gonna get any of Finland. All mine. Now, the Soviets just declared war for some territory. They demanded it from me, actually, and I said no. Which means they declared war on Finland, who does, I guess, technically exists, though not for much longer. So, there we go. That's one way to avert the Winter War. And actually, now the Soviets are at war with the Allies. What? Whoops. Right, I guess I did forget. It's not even just the guarantees. The Finland is a part of the Allies, so I just tricked everyone into coming to kill the UK. Oh, that's funny. So does that mean I can proclaim Nordic unity now? Yes, it does. Thank you. Mine. All right. We are now the Nordic Empire. That means I shouldn't have to worry about the occupation of Finland anymore, which is great. With the conquest of all the nations belonging to the Nordic region, the Danish government has begun increasing moves toward integrating the new territories. Hooray! Of course, the classic issue with fighting in Scandinavia, this has absolutely obliterated my supply lines, so I am now very low on equipment. Still, if I can just land in the UK, get a foothold, maybe we can still make something happen here. So this is the part where I just sort of sit back and wait, right? Hope that there's going to be a very brief moment when the UK pulls their fleet back and we can have enough supremacy to go for it, I guess. Though I'm not expecting much, to be honest. It's not like my allies are doing a lot over here, not yet. We could try to do some research in the naval department over here. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Denmark does deserve a good navy. Alternatively, we can go ahead and continue working on some of our basic infrastructure and our economy. And some of these are actually pretty darn good. They start stacking up things like production efficiency retention and so on and so forth. Yeah, it's not half bad. I think instead for now I'm going to secure our supply lines, which will ultimately help me reduce attrition and supply efficiency issues. So that'll be helpful when I eventually do get to land in Scotland, but it's gonna be a while. And with my next research slot, we should probably start looking for some upgrades for my ships. One pretty cool thing I haven't touched on yet, if we actually want to look at the Danish national focus tree, over here on the right is something completely new introduced in this latest expansion. It's actually called a shared focus tree. Basically, if you have multiple people in the same general region, like let's say the Nordics, right? You can have them all join a faction and start working on a bunch of focuses together, which is interesting. It really is encouraging for multiplayer activities when you have two players who may want to play next to each other, but they don't want to feel like they have to eat each other in order to actually win. This lets you kind of play together in co-op mode without actually like suffering and falling behind. Pretty cool idea. Whoa, 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 for a very brief moment. Ah, wait, it did it again. God, this happens every single game with the UK. There always comes a brief moment when I don't know if they're transferring ships around or something, but a tiny little window will open up where you're able to land. Holy crud, this might be it. Okay, we have to secure this port ASAP. Are we going to be able to? That is the big question. Throw everything we've got at these guys, make sure that they are surrounded, and then kill them. Get the supply, for the love of God, get the supply. Oh, crud, we got it. Okay, barely, but we did get it. Okay. All the reinforcements are now on the way. Of course, they all could get killed on the way, so that's a little bit risky, but whatever. The important thing is we've got a foothold. Now I just need to get myself entrenched and then push. Also, the Soviets are justifying on me. Oh, good. I've lost nearly every one of my ships, by the way. Once the UK decided to go ahead and get their fleet in position and counter, they're hitting hard. Oh, God, I think I literally just lost all of it. Oh, all but 3 ships. No, it's fine. Whatever. All right, the Germans are landing in force. That's fine, though, as long as they're attacking from land I control. I'm hoping that they give me full control, because all I should need is control, I think, in order to restore my North Sea Empire. Slowly but surely, we are pushing. I really don't have to do much of anything here, except to sort of let these forces do their work. The planning bonuses have stacked up pretty nicely. The Germans are here with tanks, and honestly, with not much worry about the Soviets, at least for a little bit longer. We're making some really strong pushes. If we can take these guys down quick, we've almost got them. Yeah, the Brits have nothing left, and this is before America even joins the war. There we go! Say goodbye to the Allies! All right, now I should already own all of Finland as far as I'm concerned, but the real thing is I need to take England proper. Very important. The Germans may have the bulk of the war score, but they're worried about the mainland, so I'm hoping they'll give this to me. Let's start with demanding all of this, and of course they're contesting. Why wouldn't they? They also want to eat all of Finland. I don't understand why you're doing this to me, Germany. Wow, you had so much points you could take all of this? Jeez, it must be nice to be you. All right, so they did give this all back. If you guys don't mind, I guess I'll take as many of the British ships as I can. Thank you, and I guess that's all I can do. All right, please tell me this worked and didn't turn into something really ugly. Okay, looks like this worked. Let's restore the North Sea Empire by October of 1940. Boom, baby. Wow, it's very dark. We are the North Sea Imperium, actually. Even better. Oh, retaken all the lands once ruled by Knut the Great. Wow. The Vikings have returned. Heck yes. If I'm being completely honest, though, I do think we got extremely lucky on that particular run there. The last time I did a test game for this, I wasn't able to break through the UK until like 1941 or something like that. Late 1941 at that. So it was painful and took a lot of military buildup and a huge naval buildup as well. But we've seen it happen before on the channel, you know? Every once in a while, the UK's coordination between their fleets just slips for a brief moment. And that's why I leave my naval invasion orders on go, because the second they see an opportunity, all I need for them to do is launch. And even if it's no longer safe, as long as they've launched, they still can land. And once they get a port, I can still flood troops in. And that's how you kill the UK. So it's purely luck at that point, I think, but hey, it worked. So what do we do at this point? Well, we know that the Soviets are trying to justify on me. I'll start justifying on them right back, and maybe Ireland as well for good measure, just so we can finally control the entirety of the North Sea. And then really what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to betray Germany. I don't really plan on staying with the Axis long term. If I see an opportunity to strike their vulnerable underbelly while they're fighting the Soviets, that right there becomes my opportunity to absolutely obliterate their core territory. And the Germans are asking me for 600,000 men in order to maintain their garrisons. Between the two of them, they won almost 1 million men. No, 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 no. I like this idea of them rising up against you, Germany. I gave you a quick and easy war, okay? Now you gotta hold it. That's your problem. And the Soviets have declared on me. Okay. Well, I have a whole new army of defensive troops on the way, and the Soviets are infamous for throwing men into a meat grinder, so I feel like we are probably still sort of okay in most of these areas, though not all. Yeah, they're losing a lot over here. The good thing is I did set up a small number of forts, so we've got some defensive bonuses, and I don't think the Soviets have done a thing to improve their supply, so they're just bleeding men and equipment right now. I could just sit here for a while, honestly. And then the Germans eventually will do their attack. I won't join their call to arms. I'll leave the Axis. And then when things are looking pretty committed over here, I could just hit them. And I'm also starting my collaboration governments. We all know how important those are. Okay, it's June 1941. It's usually close to this time that the Germans are ready to attack, like usually around this in the next like 3 months or so, if the UK went down fast. At least according to my test games. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave the faction, which is a little bit risky, but I would not be able to do that if they jump into their own war and then they kind of join up. So this way I know that I'm gonna be able to attack them if I want to. Of course, that's really going to concern them, and they're going to start pulling a ton of troops back, and they might even decide they don't like me anymore. But you know what? That's fine. That's why we have level 10 forts over here. There they go. All right, the end of the month. So the Germans are now fighting the Soviets. Perfect. That's going to relieve a bit of pressure on my end, though to be honest, I've been pretty happy with how this has turned out so far. Take a look at this. I've lost 7,000 men, and they lost 682,000 against me. What? Hold on. That is a 97-to-1 kill ratio. I'm sorry, what? God, I knew that the Soviet AI was stupid when it came to attacking, but holy crud, they're even dumber than I thought. That is insane. Since the Soviets are kind of occupied, I'm going to try something just a tiny bit risky. We're going to go ahead and attack here with the goal of cutting around through this area and encircling all the Soviet troops up in this zone here. That way I can easily collapse and defend just a couple of locations with one army, which is going to free me up to go and fight the Germans. And that should work. Of course, they probably have a port over here, so they probably can escape if they have to. But we should be able to start tightening the noose. Moscow just fell. That's actually way ahead of schedule. So they've lost 1.78 million. I've only lost 17,000 men at this point. Unfortunately, a lot of the war score is no longer mine. It was nice while it lasted. That's fine, though. So this means that Germany has most of its forces committed really far away. So if we wanted to, now's a great time to attack. And that's what I was looking for. Okay, we are declaring our war. Here we go! Vikings, go forth! Go, 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 go. They're going to be calling in all of their buddies. We got to get across this river and fast before they have a chance at doing anything else. Okay, we managed to push up to Hamburg at least. They're definitely redeploying a lot more resistance over here, so that's not going to last as long as I would like. Still, I've got my own D-Day over here that we should be able to take advantage of. And by the way, let's go ahead and clear out Ireland before I forget. And then once they seem to be distracted over here, that's when I launch my other contingency plan and try to draw their attention over in Normandy. And then hopefully the Soviets aren't so far gone that they can't try to resist a little bit more. And they've now deployed enough troops that this is going to grind me down to a halt. That was actually shockingly quick on their part. They must have a lot more forces than I thought. Still beatable, with the power of really good artillery, I guess, but we're going to have to micro a lot of this now. Oh boy, my favorite part of the game. And by micro, what I basically mean is we need to have a lot of flanking attacks. I have pretty decent soft attack on some of these guys. It's really not that bad. Still not enough to overcome their defense, though, unfortunately. I think that means we go for our alternative operation. Go, 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 go. Oh my god, they've got way more defenses than I thought. Holy crud, abort, abort, abort. Well, that did not freaking work. They were 100% ready for that. Whoa. Okay, this is a much scarier Germany game than I'm used to. Let's try a different attack over here. We're gonna try landing in this general area, see if we can start freeing up the Baltics. Okay, so that's a whole bunch of troops landing right about now. We're gonna go ahead and start immediately making some pushes this way, try to hit them where we can. You guys hit around Memel, and I also need to start building some forts over here immediately, because this is going to be hard to hold. Biggest issue I'm having right now is there's no rubber anywhere in the world, actually. Germany controls literally all of it. So, he's going to have the air advantage for, well, the rest of the game, honestly. Well, on the plus side, we at least fully control this side of a river. So I'm in a good defensive position there. I managed to build up a static defensive position here, and as these forts get completed, they'll be less likely to want to attack. The Germans have made zero progress over here. It seems like they're still devoting all of their attention against the Soviets, though it has slowed down quite a lot. I'll give them that. Can we march into Berlin? It certainly looks like we can. I just need a little bit more focused fire. Please prevent them from sending their reinforcements in there, and boom! There we go. All right, if nothing else, you know, at the very least, I got to really bloody the nose of the Germans, at least a bit. I mean, things are looking pretty good here. I've still got almost a 10-to-1 kill ratio here against the Germans because I'm trying to be very careful in my attacks, let them mostly throw themselves against me, same as the Soviets, only scarier. It's working. It's just taking a long dang time. What's amazing to me is that even though we are obviously outmatched by the Germans on the ground and in the air, at the very least we control the sea. That feels appropriate for Vikings. Here we go, here we go. Starting to make some progress. My goal is to push down to these mountains, then hook around and try to encircle a bunch of units around here so we can control a ton of this territory. Then start spearing directly into the heart of Germany. The only reason we're even slightly holding our own, and I mean slightly, is because I am attacking their industry directly. That is the only thing holding me in this war right now. That, and I've actually got, like, really good artillery, which, as long as I'm doing lots of flanking attacks, is pretty darn effective, it turns out. There we go. Okay, hold on. Just gotta hold this, hold this, hold this. All right, it's not like it's a huge catch, but this is something. I will take it. I'm amazed that the Soviets haven't fallen yet, which is, like, another reason that I'm even still having a chance in this right now. The Germans are definitely getting split, so if I can just push through to Hanover and Nuremberg and so on, that is going to cripple their industry completely. Then it's just a matter of time. Yeah, you can even see that their line is getting really spread out. They used to have like 6 units per tile, now they're down to 2. So they got a long front to cover, but so do I. That's the downside. The good news is I've been training up tons of troops, so we're catching up. And I know it's a little bit late, but now I actually have some dang tanks. There we go. All right, their combined forces can start shattering through just about everything. I'm going to use these guys to start getting little encirclements wherever I can. So how are their casualties looking now? I've lost 500,000 men. They've lost almost 4 million. Okay. Core territory will be mostly in this general area. If I can make a big push to the south, that'll take them down. Wait a minute, they're releasing people? They just released Belgium and the Netherlands as a protectorate. Oh, they're having problems. They can't hold on to their garrisons. They're out of important equipment. 93% of the way towards capitulation. Okay, we've got 45% collaboration on them too, which is great. They can just take places like Munich and stuff. They'll go down. There we go! Okay, yeah, this was a nice little trick to try and say screw you at the last second, but there we go. All right, with the Germans down, I mean, the rest of the Axis still exists, but, I mean, the Soviets are the real threat now. But y'all don't need to see that. I'm just going to go ahead and zoom forward a lot. Just going to quickly break through the Alps and start pushing through Italy, who I don't expect to have very many defenses. Mussolini gets deposed really quickly because that's a thing that happens now. The Kingdom of Italy comes back to life. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and give them all the territory, if I'm honest. I don't feel like I want to control this myself. It's going to take too much of my manpower. I feel like all I gotta do now is take out Bulgaria. Are they the last major power in the Axis? I think that they are. And sure enough, that is the Axis down. Booyah. Ha! Look at the Soviet Union. Oh, you thought you were so hot, didn't you? No, I win. Ugh, I could continue fighting the Soviets and all this, but let's be honest, this is boring. Let's just go ahead and move on. And what do we get out of the arrangement? Well, a fair chunk of land for myself, of course, and then a stupid number of puppets. And now we just let my field marshals do their thing and sit back and enjoy the fireworks. I got a whole bunch more German tanks ready to go to the front. And I forgot to take a look at how many losses we took against the Germans. I feel like it was somewhere around 2 million, and we ended up killing like 5 or 6 million. Maybe a bit better than that, I don't know. You can see how things are looking for the Soviets right now, though. 1.5 million dead to my 83,000. So yeah, I'd say this is in the bag. And finally, that's dealt with. Good lord. And that is a proper Viking empire, if ever there was one. Pretty much only Japan and the United States get to survive this particular round, but at this point I think the carnage has run its course. That run was actually exhausting. I don't think we were quite ready to take on Germany when I did. That was a very bold and risky play. We managed to pull it out, but oh lord, did that take a lot of micro on my end. I'm also not accustomed to throwing away like 5 or 6 million lives, so yeah, that was painful in so many levels. Nonetheless, as tiny little Denmark, we not only survived the Germans, we joined the Germans, then betrayed the Germans, and now we've killed the Germans and taken everything. We formed a super empire that all of our ancestors would be proud of. Fun tree, honestly, and I really do think that the fascism route is one of the weaker ones. The monarchy route is pretty darn fun, and you can do some pretty weird shenanigans even if you do want to stay democratic, just by going through the whole appeasement/subject route and then betraying Germany at the right moment. Pretty darn fun. Now imagine playing as Iceland and trying to do that all over again. Yeah, no, pass on that one, thank you. Good, I'm ready for a nap. Thank you all very much for watching, and once again, thank you to Paradox for sponsoring this entire campaign of Hoi 4. Good lord, what a marathon, but that was certainly fun. And I really enjoy the new content in the Nordics. It's good to see that they actually have something fun to do. Be sure to click on the link in the description down below if you want to learn a bit more. Otherwise, hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit that notify bell, and I will see you guys next time.